what is the goal of close reading? And he says, when I read prose, my goal is to understand the communicator. And Nicholas, I understand you just be saying your goal is to understand what the writer means or what the writer's trying to say.
Right.
Do we approach poetry in the same way or in a different way? So what are we doing when we're close reading poetry?
So I want to ask Erica, Max, and Emily in turn to respond to that very general question. What is the goal? I think what the question was. Who is it?
This is Nicholas.
Nicholas. All right. In any order, Erica, Max, Emily, what is the goal of close reading?
I think that in the context of poetry, the way that I think about the goal of close reading is to really think about how language is working. And what I mean by that is like beyond the piece as a whole, really honing in on individual words as material objects and thinking about the way that they're functioning in the space of the page, in the space of the poem, etc.
Yeah, thank you so much. Max, you want to take a shot at that? What's the goal of close reading?
Yeah, I agree with Erica. Actually, I was going to say that for me, close reading is about finding everything other than the author's intention, quote unquote.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's actually part of it. I think that the close reading actually helps to explode the notion that we need to discover that the author is communicating, some sort of secret thing that we need to kind of uncover. But rather, we can do, as Erica said, we can see the way that language is functioning in a sort of broader context, in a social way, political ways. It helps us to kind of deal with lots of the baggage that is built into the language and lots of the baggage.
So what you're saying here leads to all kinds of controversial things, but let's just try one of those. So you're implying that what the author intended is one thing, but what the poem means could be another, and our job is to explore what might be called the signification unconscious, something that the creator of the words may not have known the thing could mean, and our job is to explore something like that. And I use the word unconscious deliberately so that we're getting into the realm of analysis of texts to find out what the writer may not have wanted us to know, etc.
Exactly. Yes.
Just to throw repression and suppression in there. I'm getting an affirmative look from Eric Weinstein in the back, which means that I'm appropriately going into the realm of analysis. You're approving it. Wait, you have to get a mic. Hang on, Max. Here's Eric.
There's so many ways to talk about this, and there's been a lot of critical.
Are we hearing him okay?
Hmm?
We're getting the mic on back there.
There's a lot of ways to talk about this. We've got 100 years of critical theory now, more or less. But one thing I would say is that you can get close to a person, you can get close to a poem, you can get close to a poet. Those are things that have to do with each other, but each is slightly different. I can get close to a poem and its rich field of possible meanings without necessarily having to make the effort to figure out, what was the author's intention here.
Yeah, and I don't think Max he just put that in as one of the many possibilities. I think the two of you agree. Max, do you want to do a follow-up before I turn to Emily?
Yeah, I like the idea of, of the unconscious that you used, Al. I mean, it's a good notion. I think it's a useful one. I would resist it a little bit personally, but yeah, I think it's an important thing. I think the great thing that close reading helps us to do, especially in this first week, and when people are first coming around to the idea of what close reading is and what it can do, is to get away from this notion of intention. I think on the author's part, that it's not a guessing game. It's not detective work. That there's actually more meaning that we can draw out together collaboratively and bringing in sorts of other texts, other contexts, other ideas, and getting away from the idea that something is being communicated biographically or something to us.
Great. Thank you.